The Thrustmaster T300RS and the Logitech G29 are still the best options to start sim racing with. At least if you're still living in 2015. Wake up, it's 2023! You should have a look at this thing. The CAMMUS C5, a $349 direct drive wheel that also comes with a set of pedals for only $50 more. Today we have a look at the pros and cons, figure out who should buy this, and I tell you what I think, that this will be the new go-to beginner wheel in the future. And with that, welcome back to Overtake.gg in yet another episode of Joe's Hardware Corner, today with the CAMMUS C5. Just like with the Logitech G29, the C5 comes as an all-in-one package, combining the motor and the actual steering wheel within one unit. When ordering the C5, you'll also receive a table clamp to mount the motor to your desk, fully included in the price of $349 US. Which is a fantastic price when you compare it to the current best-selling beginner wheel on the market, the G29, which you can still buy for $363 US on the internet. But the CAMMUS is relatively speaking in the same ballpark while offering direct drive technology, which is a game changer for sim racing steering wheels. Not only offering faster rotation return speeds, but also a gearless transmission of the driving forces, resulting in a smoother driving experience overall. And that with minimal noise. There are no fans in the wheelbase itself, and as there are no cogs or belts inside of the motor, the device is basically silent. So no bothering any parents or neighbors if you want to game in the middle of the night, because the CAMMUS C5 is almost completely silent. Which is a concern when you choose a G29 from Logitech. Even the shifter pads on the backside are on silent mode. You can see them here. They're extremely small. As a grown person, you have to kind of reach across the rim to use them, which isn't perfect, but honestly, it's not really a biggie. For me, the shifter pads are more of an immersion breaker than anything else, as you won't find small tiny shifter pads like those on a real steering wheel. But of course, the pads have to be tiny to make the housing design possible, so that you can have the steering wheel and the motor right behind it in, basically one unit. The positive from that is that you get rid of all the bulk that is usually right behind the steering wheel, keeping your monitor further away from the steering wheel. And in sim racing, you usually want the monitor to be as close as possible to get fully immersed in the action. Another plus, the CAMMUS C5 is of really high quality, which took me by surprise regarding the price point. The rim is made out of fake leather that regardless feels nice to the touch and can be used without any gloves carefree. The buttons rock a bit to the sides, but overall have a nice click to them and are plentiful. And I'm also a big fan of the table clamp, which offers a lot of clever solutions to mount the C5 to different configurations. You see, there are a couple of screws on the side of it, which you can change the angle of the steering wheel itself, and you could also decide on ditching the clamp mechanism as a whole and screw only the bottom part of it to a wheel stand or rig. That paired with the minimalistic design and the rigidness of the whole mechanism makes this little fella nearly perfect. But before we have a look at the C5 and how it performs on track, let's have a look at the pedal set. This one comes bundled with the C5, and if you buy the C5 on its own and compare the price to the bundle, the CAMMUS CP5 pedals only will cost you around $50, which is why you shouldn't expect too much from the CP5 pedals. They are the bare minimum to be able to race. 2 identical spring-loaded pedal arms, a thin pedal mounting plate and 2 Hall sensors to measure the pedal distance without any customization options when it comes to pedal travel, the stiffness or preload. For the money you pay, you will get a working pedal set that kinda is well crafted and will endure a lot of hours of racing. But to be honest, I would only recommend this pedal set if you buy it for kids. They can be placed on the floor and are relatively sticky thanks to the sticky pads that are placed here underneath, but they only will remain sticky on, of course, a smooth surface and if there's no dust on them, just like on mine. But as the C5 is only compatible on PC and not on console, so not on PlayStation and not on Xbox, the pedals are irrelevant anyways because you can switch them out for basically anything. So opting for a set of FANATEK CSL or CSL Elite pedals should be the better option, with the standard CSL pedals also only costing $79.95 US, so a mere 30 more, because the CP5s don't offer a lot of resistance as there's no foam, no elastomer or spring altering with it. This makes trailing the brake and training your muscle memory almost impossible, making these pedals more of a toy than actual racing gear. But hey, for what they are, they work perfectly fine, and as I already said, if you're getting those for kids, they might be even ideal, because you don't need a lot of power to press them, which is ideal for children's feet. And if you're thinking about getting the C5 as your steering wheel for trucking simulation, I think the pedals are more than enough as well. And for anybody else who's looking at the C5 as a starter pack for sim racing, just have a look at other pedals. But let's have finally a look at the performance of the C5 and why I think that this will become the go-to beginner wheel in sim racing. As the CAMMUS C5 is a direct drive wheelbase, the transmission is seamless and therefore already better than the G29 or a Thrustmaster beginner wheel like the T248. Sure, 5 Nm of force is not a whole lot, but enough to get started and to feel quite well what the car is doing on track and to enjoy some road effects, for example when driving over curbs. What took me by surprise is the fast return speed this wheel has, although all the weight sits in the wheel itself. In this category, it even defeats the Moza R5 or the CSLDD from FANATEK, which would make this wheel perfect for drifting or rallying if it wouldn't have the D shape, which can't be swapped out as for now. But maybe they'll figure something out in the future though, as the wheelbase and steering wheel are shown as separate devices in the software, so there is hope. Overall, the software and calibratable effects are super minimal, but everything you'll ever need with a 5 Nm wheel. Otherwise, there are only marginal things you could complain about, like the small amount of friction you feel when rotating the unit, which is neglectable as you forget about it relatively fast when you start to drive. So yeah, I really like the CAMMUS C5 for what it is, but who should buy this? I believe that the CAMMUS C5 is the new and better alternative to the Logitech G29 and 923. Except for the pedals, it beats them in all categories and is simply just a much better option on track. So, if you're still racing on a gamepad and want to adventure further into the hobby, this is the perfect starting point to finally immerse you into virtual racing. This will work wonders in games like Forza Horizon, in ASETEK or Euro Truck Simulator. But if you already own a G29 or a Thrustmaster T150, T300 RS, this is not really an upgrade option. If you want to take the next step and go from a belt or cock-driven wheel to a direct drive wheel, rather look at the Moza R9 or the FANATEK CSLDD. With 5 Nm you will never wrestle around the car on the limit of grip because there just isn't enough power. So if you're already bitten by the sim racing bug, take the next step. And if you want to become the cool uncle, aunt or parent that buys their kids amazing toys, yeah, that's the one. Just make sure your darling is playing on PC, as the C5 won't work on PlayStation and on Xbox. That's important, parents. The C5 also pairs really well with the new F1 game, which we reviewed a couple of weeks back, so you can check the video here. But that's it from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in and see you next time around. Cheers!